reinforcement and corporals who didn't hear this big spiel. So who does that?
Okay, company will take care of that through, actually, because Junkie's going to be very busy. Chris, I'm going to give you the task of arranging for the reinforcements of soldiers into the next position. We can talk a little bit more about that offline if you want some details.
Well, I'm just going to ask quickly if that's going to be by air mail, or are they going to drive there in trucks?
Once again, we should have that option for both. The distances we're talking about here aren't, well, it is pretty far from the airport, actually. So
Well, we're heading
as
to
long as
Kavala from the main airbase. That's, I think, close to 10 kilometers.
Yeah, exactly. So if the AAA is minimalized, then you can certainly bring them in by helicopter. Otherwise, we'll have to arrange to bring them in by vehicle.
Well, I know the terrain in that area, and if the AA threat is confined to the city and, stemming out from there, then we can pretty safely call in air within walking distance.
Exactly. If you have to set your LZs behind and then they have to walk, half a kilometer, that's fine too.
All right, no more questions from me.
Plashta.
I just have one point regarding the artillery, the MCC artillery. There's a system in place with MCC, particularly the commander console, that allows you to call in artillery, and you have to put in your own grids, your bearing and distance to target and all that shit. So it might be something we might want to think about using just to add the actual need for us to give calls for fire instead of just calling a grid and then dropping bombs on it.
Well, the idea behind this is the training session next Saturday is going to deal exactly with that. So when it comes to Sunday, the people will be trained on how to do it properly from both sides of the line, both the requester and the supplier, I hope. So hopefully that'll be a very realistic aspect of things. And as I said, if we need to use MCC, to conduct those missions, then we will.
Yeah, well, essentially what I'm just trying to say is that you could use a FUFAC to do that through MCC, and he would actually have to input information to the console to make it fire. And it's not the same thing as the MCC mission building console. It's a separate one.
Oh, I know. I've used it. Yeah, I know what you're talking to.
User in your channel timed
I have suddenly one more question about the weather. Do we have any Met reports on what's going to be going on during the morning?
At this point, we don't. 7-day forecast is showing it slightly overcast with periods of sun, but the time of year that we're talking about, the weather is very, very up and down. It changes hourly, so we'll see what happens.
So we might have rain, fog, clear, or overcast.
Exactly.
That was actually what my other question was.
Anything else, Sergeant Blair?
That's all I got.
Mascolo Foss, did you have a question?
User joined your channel.
Just pretty much the equipment-wise and the position for 6-1 is pretty much what all I have. Equipment-wise, TUA, if we don't use a TUA and use a Kuma, we can do artillery. Otherwise, if we use 2 TUAs, we're going to have 2 because the limitation of the rounds, plus it does drop after launch a little bit.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave that decision up to you guys. All I can dictate to you is that your first priority is anti-armor, and your secondary priority is indirect fire.
Okay, we can do both if you need the 155 millimeter. We can do that easily. Otherwise, the position of where we're at, basically, according to the map on Twiddler, that's out in the open, literally no cover for anything. So it's pretty much saying that there's a vehicle right here, go ahead, blow it up.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but you got to understand that your guys' role is to perform your mission how you see fit. So when I indicate something, just for now and in the future, when I indicate a position on a map, it doesn't mean I literally want you to go there. I want you to be in that location. And it's up to you as the commander, or whoever is the commander of your troop or battery, to position yourselves accordingly to protect yourselves, but at the same time provide the support that we need.
Okay. Otherwise, that's pretty much it.
Okay, thank you. Spider, do you have anything you'd like to throw in there?
I'm just gonna upload the screenshot here. It's that 2 platoon marker. Here, one sec. On the Twiddler, I'll make a little marking.
Do you need a different map?
That you see that little
Yeah.
Yeah, got it.
that circle I made. That is really this is what it looks like from the 2 platoons position, because they can clearly look down on that little area. So if the enemies do push up to that area, they can clearly see. I think that's our RV.
Right.
That.
Yeah. Well,
so,
if we let the enemy get in behind us, we failed already. So that I'm not worried about that.
no, like if we push back to that RV back there, and then the enemies push up to the top of the hill, they can
It'll take them
clearly
a
see.
while to get to the top of that hill
Yeah,
with
that's-
armor and infantry.
Yeah, no,
and
we'll be gone before they get there. I
Yeah.
guarantee you. Keep in mind that the enemy, they're not just gonna. This is the whole point. The enemy's not gonna just keep burrowing forward, taking thousands of casualties. They're gonna have to perhaps even come to a complete halt while they reconsolidate and try and figure out where the hell the firing's coming from. So the enemy isn't impervious to these sorts of things. So keep that in mind. That's the whole point behind the operation.
yeah, they'll stop
Plus-
them. They're not going to act
Yeah,
like AI that just are out to slaughter us all.
Plus, with the new
Meaning-
ASR AI3, we know that the AI is smart and they'll
Like the
try
flank.
to flank or something.
Yes, that's
A
right.
lot.
That's one thing we learned in our last operation, which is something I'm going to have to put some thought into, and offline, perhaps Di Pietro and some of you more experienced guys with that can help me out a little bit in terms of whether we can adjust, if you will, the intelligence of the enemy. But we won't talk about that right now.
You just have to micro them, basically.
And there's no indication of whether or
Uh,
not the MCC skill adjusting system still works if ASR overrides it.
I know with Zeus, if you place units, you can double click each one individually and change their skill level, but I don't know if that's overridden by ASR AI3. It might be.
Okay, well, I'll do a little bit of experimenting then, and I'll try and figure it out, because if I guess what I'm trying to say is, and it's not to dumb down the enemy per se, to make it super easy for us, but at the same time, we do not have the forces or assets that we would, quote, in real life have. So that's something to take into consideration. So we have to fudge it a little bit to make sure that we don't get overwhelmed too quickly, then we will. Di Pietro, you had another quick question?
Oh, it was the weather question. I just
okay.
bailed to ask it since he was talking.
Okay. Forgive me if I pronounce your name wrong.
I'm okay.
Duvech, are you okay? Okay. Could you pronounce your name for me for the future?
Duvaceki.
Duvaceki. Okay, thank you.
Erdet just calls me DD.
Or Dove.
Dove's good too.
Dove. Any other final questions or concerns from anybody? Okay, I can't emphasize enough the need, especially for Junkie, Foss, Di Pietro, and Chris, as well as anyone else that you think will be needed to be at that training on Saturday for calling in indirect fire. It's very, very important, and we're going to be using it a lot. The enemy forces that are going to be coming at us are not weak. So this will not be for the weak of heart in terms of slowing them down. So we need to have the ability to use all the assets with as much effect as we possibly can.
It will be there.
Okay.
For Upper
Okay.
Palisade?
I'll be expecting probably anywhere
Oh,
from
tomorrow,
like
you mean?
14 to 15
Yeah, this
for
one's,
my
No,
this
platoons.
one's next Sunday, not this Sunday.
Yeah,
Oh,
the
yeah,
next
that's right.
one.
It's well, this Sunday. Whatever.
Yeah,
No, I
that's
mean
Operation
his
Sierra
guys,
Dusk.
his guy, like the thing we just loaned.
This is
not
all
tomorrow.
for next week, not this week.
Yeah.
So this will be the norm during 2015 if everything goes good, is you'll always get your orders from me on Saturday at 1600 hours for the operation that'll be occurring 7 days later. Okay?
Fuck.
So that gives you guys lots of time. Okay, lots of time to think about it, to ask any other questions between now and then for clarification, etc., etc. So what that means is when we show up next Sunday, I expect that we don't have any confusion. Nobody's asking any questions at that time, etc., etc. If there's somebody who, for example, we don't have a CSOG representative here that I know of, although Herman, I'm sure, can take care of that. But it would have been nice to have a CSOG person here because their role is extremely important. They've got to find these anti-air assets and they've got to take them out in order to allow our Air Force to fly. So things like that are really important. And although I was going to talk about it more on Sunday, I'll just mention it now. You asked me why I'm not writing it out. The reason is simple, because I want people to show up for the O group so we can clarify it and discuss it. If I print it out on paper and make it available, then all you people will not, let me rephrase, I don't mean all you people, then all people will do is go, oh, I don't have to fucking show up because he's got it all written out and I can just read it. And that's not what I want. So that's the reason for that. So you understand.
Just out of curiosity, is there any possible way that you would consider writing it up and then handing it out after the O group's completed, so that it's not given to any of us? Because I know that myself, I'm pretty visual, so for me to see that all in that way, it helps me a lot more. Whereas with this, it's going to take me probably 3 days to put it all together. Whereas if I have the writing in front of me, I can do it in a couple of hours.
Yeah, in this case, no.
All right, well, not
You'll have
this
to get-
case. I mean, in the
you'll have to-
future.
Well, it'll be situation dependent, right? In this case, I gave you a fair number of maps, so you should be able to read off those exactly what's going on.
Sure.
Anything else? Does anyone need to meet with me at all?
I'm
Okay,
just looking
well,
at
thank
the
you
Off
very-
Palisade event, and I see a whole bunch of people marked not attending that aren't even in the unit anymore. They
Yeah, you know
haven't
why?
been removed
Because
yet.
I moved it, right? I think a lot of that stuff is, I don't know how to change that like that.
Oh,
Remember, it was
yeah.
supposed to happen before Christmas?
Right.
So I think a lot, because you'll see guys in there going, I'm at Christmas dinner. So maybe just make your guys aware that it's been changed and they may have to change their status.
Very good point. Especially some of the attending guys might not be attending either.
Exactly, yeah. So I'm not too sure how you can, I thought it would just refresh on its own, but obviously it doesn't. Does anybody of the A company individuals need to discuss what's going to go on at the staff meeting later this evening?
Say again?
I mean, the
Does anybody want to
battalion staff meeting?
discuss? Yeah, at the battalion staff meeting at 2000. Is there anyone that wants to talk a little bit about that in my office about what's going to go on there and what we should present or what have you?
If you want to do like a brief of what we want to talk about, then I'll stick